And I think we're getting ready to start here.
We're rolling.
Yeah, well, let's kick it.
All right.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of Hardheaded, where we talk about everything that is practical and realistic. Check us out at hardheadedpodcast.com. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here across from Matt Amos. To my far right, Mr. Chet Sears, and I am Troy, Three-Shot Trussell. And today, we have a very special guest on our show. And we're just going to jump right into that. Matt, why don't you give us an introduction?
Perfect. Yeah. So I've got Jim Kelly on the phone. No, it's not the football player, and not the UFC guy. Apparently, there's a mixed martial artist out there.
I did not know about the mixed martial arts guy, but I did know about the Buffalo Bills.
Now this Jim does know some mixed martial arts, quite a bit, I would suspect. I've never had to be on the receiving end of it, which is awesome.
Yeah,
because there's a YouTube video out there floating around of him choking a dude out with his own gi.
Yes, I've seen that video, and it is scary for someone like me.
It looked like the guy died.
Jim, you jumped up and started immediately helping the guy. I thought that was very noble.
Yeah, well, he's not a bad guy. The guy's name was James Klingerman. He's an awesome dude, and he's super successful. And I took him serious because he was a very competitive guy. So when he went out, there's no animosity. It's just a competition. So I thought I should probably help him out.
Yeah, I don't know much about the sport, but when he moved to take you down, it seemed like you were more than willing to grapple with him on the ground. You're like, okay, this is how we're going to do this. Let's go.
Oh yeah, that's the name of the game for jiu-jitsu. It's definitely a ground game heavy kind of perspective on approaching self-defense or attacking someone. So, and he made a good first move, so I wasn't going to fight it, and good on him. I accepted his success and did my best to kind of turn the tables on him, and he made a mistake, and I took advantage of it, and he paid for it.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it.
Yeah, he paid for it all right. It probably looks a lot worse on video than it actually was, but
yeah.
So anyway, I appreciate you coming on and agreeing to be on the podcast, man. Of course. Like I've told these guys, you've got such a outstanding history and just a lot of the things you've done and one of the most humble guys I know. That for somebody that's done as much as you have. And, I kind of want to go over with you on this podcast, just, a little bit of self-defense and what you think are the important things. And, then we'll move to a top three. And normally in a top three, if we were doing self-defense or something like that, hey, what top three items would you need for self-defense? But I figured we'd be covering it twice. It'd be better if we just talked about it in the what's on your mind portion of it.
Sure.
And
especially because some of the people on the podcast, some of the hosts here, would have nothing good to offer.
Right.
So we would need to defer to the expert.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so for our audience, because they're like, who's this guy on the other end of the line? What qualifies him to talk about self-defense? And you started out as a Marine, right? And that's really all that matters.
I did. Yeah, that's true. I enlisted in '89, so started as a Marine at Parris Island.
Oh, so you were on the East Coast.
Yes, it was.
So I'm one up on you there because I was at Pendleton San Diego. So I think, I had a little bit harder of a boot camp than you did.
Oh, brother, we all know that the real Marines are made at Parris Island.
That's what they all say, man.
Yeah.
So what led you to join back in '89?
It was one of those things that I think some people are just born with that drive. I was one of those guys. I was always very driven for the outdoors and a striving of competitiveness and trying to do the very best I could. And I saw a goofy movie called The Neverending Story, which is super weird, but it was impactful whenever I was a young kid. And there's a scene in there where the protagonist is he has to face his true self, his true character of self. He's supposed to look into this mirror, and the mirror reflects exactly who he is, the character of who he is. And it shows this knight going up, just shining armor knight, goes into this this little area and looks into the mirror and gets destroyed because he can't face who he actually is. And then the protagonist, the story's hero, goes in and very humbly and eagerly faces it, and he just sees himself. So it kind of struck me as he was authentically who he was, and that's what I took away from it. I don't remember much of the story, but I remember that of, okay, so that's what I want to know about myself. Is there a place out there in this world where I can test myself and honestly evaluate, do I have what it takes? What kind of stuff am I made out of? And I was pursuing that effort, and someone told me, one of the guys I went to high school with, was like, "Hey, dude, there's this thing called Navy SEALs. You want to go be a Navy SEAL?" I'm like, "Yes, I absolutely want to be a Navy SEAL." And then one of the days, these Marine guys came in, and I was real close to graduating, and he was like, "Hey, son, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "I'm going to be a Navy SEAL." He was like, No. Let me tell you, you want to be a Force Recon Marine. I'm like, "Well, what is that?" And he described it. It was like you jump out of airplanes and you play in submarines and you swim in the beaches and shoot guns. And I was like, "Well, that's exactly what I want to be." And he says, "Right on, kid. Let's go sign you up." And that's it, man. They saw me coming from a long way out, and that's how I got into it. But I wanted to see who I wanted to have some sort of venue where I could test myself and see if I really was what I aspired to be. And that's kind of how I ended up in the Marine Corps.
Well, and I think that just from my perspective, I think you've exceeded those goals just from my personal view. And I know that there's a lot of stuff in your career that we can't cover and we can't talk about. But I guess just kind of take us through where that joining the Marine Corps and being Force Recon, kind of where that led you, moving forward as you continued to try to challenge yourself.
Yeah, so I got in the Marine Corps. I took the second Force Indoc right out of SOI. I passed it. They asked me to come over. I wasn't allowed. The Gulf War was still kind of a thing, even though it only lasted 100 hours. And I was promised to Victor 1-3, which is out in Hawaii. Yep. And so I couldn't stay there in North Carolina. So I in transit. I went out to Camp Pendleton. Out there where First Force was, and I took that indoc. It just happened to be the timing. I passed that one. They asked for me to come over, but I wasn't allowed, so ended up going out to Hawaii, and I went to Alpha Company 1-3. It was in the weapons platoon, and immediately the Marine Corps at that time was trying to get their deployment cycles back in schedule after the first Gulf War. So all that stuff was happening. And I spent 9 months in Okinawa and the Philippines, and got a lot of good training. I saw the world, kind of grew up a little bit, came back, took the third recon indoc, passed it, and was eventually allowed to go. So I spent my time there in Hawaii, and they cased the colors for third recon, Alpha Company, third recon battalion. And then it became Reconnaissance Company, and it shifted some of the dynamics. And the Marine Corps at that time was trying to figure out really what they wanted to do with the reconnaissance community. They were kind of mixing it together and putting Force Recon at certain places and then putting it all together. And I didn't feel like I wanted to go through those growing pains. I really kind of wanted to go do the job. The war was over, and I felt like I couldn't quite grow where I wanted to go in the Marine Corps. Now, this is time specific. I think there was a lot of growing pains at that time. They were not involved in SOCOM, so there wasn't any participation in the greater spectrum of special warfare. So the Marine Corps was really kind of on its own. So I did the best I could. I loved the Marine Corps. I loved being in recon. I loved the men. I still do. It's my first pride. Those guys are amazingly accomplished and capable people. And got out. I bumped into some dude that was doing martial arts. And actually started a little bit before. Like, I broke my leg climbing in a glacier. And while I was sitting with this broken leg for a little bit, just a few months before I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I wanted to go learn Taekwondo because I didn't know anything about it. I was like, if I'm a recon Marine, I need to like be a complete badass, and I needed to know how to fight, which I didn't. So I went to the gym there on base to where the Taekwondo class was supposed to be held. And as I'm walking in, there's these dudes rolling around on a mat. And one of them was like, "Hey, dude, you want to learn jiu-jitsu?" I only know if you asked me then what it was, I couldn't have told you. But I know it now because I made a choice to learn jiu-jitsu. And I was like, "No, I don't want to learn jiu-jitsu." I couldn't even pronounce it. I said, "I'm going to learn Taekwondo." So I passed this guy up, walked down the hall, went to where the room was, and the Taekwondo instructor stood me up. He wasn't there. So I'm sitting there in this room with no lights on, and the guy's clearly not in there. And it's called a decision point. What do I do? Do I sit there and just like try and fake it, hide out because, I made a fool of myself, or do I swallow my pride and go back out there and say, "Okay, hey, Taekwondo guy stood me up. What is this stuff that you're doing?" And I did. I went out there, and that was my introduction into jiu-jitsu. So whenever I got out of the Marine Corps, I healed up from those broken legs and got out of the Marine Corps. I bumped into a guy who did that in the Cincinnati area, and I started pursuing it. And that led me out to California. I started training at the Inosanto Academy, and Dan Inosanto, Guru Dan Inosanto, is Bruce Lee's #1 student protege. He's probably the world's foremost expert on martial arts, bar none. I would say that that's probably unanimously agreed upon, that he is the curator of the world's martial arts, an accomplished man. Yeah. Guru Dan Inosanto. And through them, I met Jean-Jacques Machado and the guys that were doing this crazy stick fighting thing, Mark Benny. And they were doing this gathering where there was a bunch of dudes that take a stick and they go out there and do live striking stick fighting. Oh, goodness. And they call themselves the Dog Brothers. And yeah. And it's funny, but they were legit guys that were like, "Hey, we do all this martial arts stuff. Hey, let's put it into practice." So their motto was, as long as you don't put someone in the hospital, it's acceptable. So if you busted somebody's nose, you gave them some stitches, you broke a bone, that's good. As long as you didn't put him in the hospital. So, and that really, that was right down my alley. I was like, all right, so here's some combat arms and you can really pursue this. And I started really getting after that. So I started learning Kali. I became a Dog Brother. I did all the gatherings right up until they went to the Raw Gym. So that kind of dates that area. They ended up going to like Rico Schiaparelli's place I don't know where it's. I'd never been there. So I was at the park at Hermosa Beach. And one of the guys there said, "Hey, dude, there's this guy named Pedro Sauer. He kind of grew up with Hicks and Gracie and in the Gracie family, and he's in Salt Lake City, Utah. You probably should look this guy up and go train jiu-jitsu," because he thought I had some talent there. So I was like, "Yeah, okay." I had a friend that was out there in Utah and made it easy. So I went over there in Utah and met Pedro and one of his instructors, Rob Handley. And met Jake Johnson, two guys that were under Pedro, and that started my pursuit of jiu-jitsu. And I think, if you're wanting to understand like how my path ultimately ended up, it really starts right there with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and that opened up all of the doors for me. I happen to be a Christian, so ultimately it's God that guides my steps. But it was through jiu-jitsu that those opportunities arose. So I started doing jiu-jitsu with Jake. Ended up going up to Salt Lake, living with another good guy. His name's Jorge Jimenez, Puerto Rican friend of mine that's now has his own school in Atlanta. Trained with Pedro, and through those opportunities, I was invited with Pedro to teach special forces guys, units that are just special mission units, and that was how I ended up going into the Army and going on to other special units activities.
So I'll bring that all the way back and say that all started because of the Neverending story, right?
It sure did. I think
is that the new recruitment video? I mean, is that the recruitment video that we should be showing everybody these days?
Oh man! And to admit this, I mean, that is slightly embarrassing.
I think it makes it even more awesome.
All right, I can only imagine my colleagues are like, "All right, yeah, Neverending story."
And if we really want to go back to the discussion about Paris Island or San Diego. I mean, Jim had his legs all busted up and he healed and went on to jiu-jitsu, and your legs got all busted up and you didn't heal. So, I mean, it sounds like the Paris Island guys
I think I healed pretty well. they grew back stronger. I may not be as agile, but I think they're stronger.
That's true. You don't have to worry about snake bites when you're walking through the tall grass.
Invincible in the woods until I fall and get bit in the face.
Well, that's awesome. I've got something that I'm talking about later in the podcast in our third segment that actually dovetails exactly with what you're talking about. So I mean, it's really your pursuit. I think is one of the things that really stands out. Is that and I think the differences between people who have done really neat things, whether they be professionally, in this one we're looking at, from military and sports, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and what separates those that are successful versus those that are not. It's the drive. Like I want to be challenged to find out who I am, and so many times in this day and age, there are a lot of people that hide and run from a challenge because they don't want to know who they are. They don't want to risk the potential for failure, and
they're afraid to find out who that person really is.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about selection for a special missions unit, there's a lot of talk. This guy. I went to selection, I didn't make it or whatever. I tip my hat off to that guy. Like, hey, brother. I mean, of course, I made the selection process through. A few places that I ended up in, and I understand that. But had I not made selection, still my opinion would still be the same. As you had what it took to make the first step towards your goal, where by large the majority of other people don't ever venture to take that risk, and they're happy to just be where they're at now. There are a lot of people who don't want to do that, and that's totally okay. But there's a lot of people, and I hear it often of like, yeah, man, I was going to do it, but, it's like, I got a toothache and, I just didn't really feel good that day. And then, I forgot my shoes and whatever. The story goes on. I'm like, hey, brother, it's cool. It's okay not to want to do that, but don't take away. Don't take away from those that did and were successful, and those that put everything on the line and came up short. I mean, they made that choice and they took that risk, and that's something to be commended for those that have that drive. And I think that really it separates a lot of people that are super successful. And then I think it further kind of splits out for those that are really talented but not successful, and those that are medium or average talent but are really successful is how much drive that individual has and how disciplined they are to exercise that drive.
Yeah, even so much on putting yourself out, like you're talking about the Dog Brothers, right? You're going to go in there and you're about to get beat up, but you're going to be better for putting yourself out there. And they're going to take care of you to a certain extent, right? They're not there to.
They're not going to put you in the hospital.
Yeah, we're not going to end.
They're going to get you close.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And it's like their motto is higher consciousness through harder contact. And there's something to be said for that. Like, if you do a certain style of martial arts where you've never struck, you never have an idea of what that real reality and what that timing is and what force is. You have no idea. So it's all theory and fiction. But if boxing would be one of those where you get hit. You really get a paradigm shift the first time your nose bleeds because someone's faster than you are able to move your face away. And that creates a sense of reality. So, hey, this is what it really is like. And now I can start to manage those processes to make myself successful.
And that carries over into every aspect of life. And I think about it in your military career, knowing what it's like to get hit, and I'm using air quotes around that, but it could get bad, and we're still going to push forward. And then you look at your professional career, like this contract didn't go through, but I'm not done, right? I'm going to get back up, and we're going to go find another customer, or that ability to see reality for what it is, and then to continue to move.
Yeah, I think for me to put that kind of in perspective, how I walked through life was there was a lot of discussion of like what masculinity is, what manhood is, what warriorship is, what good Marine is or good soldier. Because I'm Marine Corps and then I enlisted in the Army. For me, I was fortunate. I met Jesus Christ when I was 13 years old and gave my life to him. And from that day forward, I looked at life as I am exactly who God says I am in Christ. That's who I am. So I never really was faced with the challenge of like trying to meet the world's standard of what its idea of man is, or a soldier or Marine, or what masculinity is. I'd already had that answered for myself. So it kind of freed me up in a way to like just be myself and get out there and do the best that I could, because ultimately I was secure in my ultimate destiny. So I was not afraid to fail, and I risked failure every time, because if I failed, I was like, okay, I will pick myself back up. I will figure out how I failed. I will do the best I can to solve that problem, and I will do it again, because there was no fear of being something less than I thought of myself, because I had some abstract standard of defining who I was as a person.
Yeah, you weren't defined by that scenario or that trial. That didn't define who you were as a person. That's
not at all
what you experienced at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I hear when he's talking about all this stuff? My favorite quote.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
I think that's almost like the overall theme there.
If you ever get a tattoo, that's what it needs to be.
It should be don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it, be about it. Yeah, I definitely could identify with that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Maybe a temporary tattoo or something.
You can get a sticker, and it'd be just as fine. Put it on your.
See, I still think I'm probably one of the only grunts out there that does not have a single tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. You would be in the minority.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So all that led you around. You've had an incredible career in the military. Obviously, your martial arts career as well, because you had a studio there for a while as well. Where you were training others, correct?
Yeah, I was. For close to 18 years, I had Gracie Cincinnati in Cincinnati, Ohio. I had opened that out with the blessing of Pedro. Pedro Sauer is my instructor. And he gave me the blessing to go start teaching. So I ran and operated and had instructed that school for a long time, and shared my vision of self-defense and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to the best of my ability. As I tried to faithfully reflect what I had learned from Hickson and Helson. I have trained with Grandmaster Elio. I remember what the old man was like. I remember, of course, I didn't speak Portuguese. Frank Cucci was the one that kind of translated for me on those occasions. And I remember that, and I tried to authentically transfer that knowledge as it was given to me. And I'm removed from the well, and my students are further removed from the well. If Grandmaster Elio is the well, the further away you get from the source, the more watered down. I worked hard to always point to the originators as like, hey, this is where it came from. Don't look at me as something that is the source. I'm not. I'm a reflection of the people that I learned from. Here's where it was developed. I wanted my jiu-jitsu to be about the jiu-jitsu and not about me, which is why I never put my name on anything. It was not a Jim Kelly school. It was a jiu-jitsu school, and really pursued that. And ultimately ended up with becoming a certified training center under with Human and Henner, as well as maintaining my relationship with Pedro and doing all of it all together. And it's a successful school, and it continues to run. I stepped away from it. I sold it to my senior student, who is extremely talented, and they're doing good things, and they're keeping that vision alive and continuing doing good stuff there in the Cincinnati area.
What a great metaphor for Christianity as well, right? Not making it about yourself, but try to do everything that you can in the way that you live to point people back to the well of Christ, right? I'm trying to be. Don't look at me, but what I'm doing is trying to reflect somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I live with myself. I know who I am. Yeah. So if someone's looking at me as like, they're idolizing me in some way, I'm going to be the first to tell you, I am going to disappoint you. I'm a human, and I'm gonna mess up, and you're gonna be sadness in your heart when that day comes. but if I continue to point to what I believe is the authentic truth, then I'm out of the picture, and I'm one of the guys trying to achieve the best that I can, like anyone else is. And I'm on the journey. I'm a little bit behind some others, and I'm a little bit ahead of some others, but I'm just on my journey, doing the best that I can, walking through life as God makes me more in Christ's image.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, oftentimes through things that are quite painful, and I'd rather not do it because it tends to suck, and I'm a bullheaded man, so sometimes I'm a little slow to the tape. But
that was
the Lord's got me.
That was like a disclaimer at the end of a drug commercial. It's like, this will do all this, but the side effects are. Yeah.
Is that not true?
So you mentioned self-defense in there just very briefly, and I'd like to touch on that, because some of the conversations that you and I have had about self-defense, because you've got everybody under the sun out there on social media, wherever it might be, touting this is the greatest thing and this is what you need to do, and you've really got to work on being able to draw fast and stuff like that, and you've really opened my eyes to a lot of the stuff in the realm of self-defense, and some of it doesn't even have to do with a weapon.
Right.
And, so I just kind of wanted you to touch on that. What do you think are some of the most important things that a person would need for self-defense?
Well, one is an understanding of what the difference between violence and fighting. You can get into a fight. I can punch a guy and maybe choke him, maybe break his arm, I don't know, twist a knee, tear his ACL. Like that's getting in a fight. When we're talking about violence, imagine, if you will, an older mid-30s guy, and he is going to right?
Older in the 50s. That was a decade ago for me, the 30s.
Yeah.
I'm with 50, you.
So
okay.
A man younger and more capable than myself, but definitely out of adolescence.
I got you.
Right. And we max that. I mean, and this person decides that they want to do a sexual assault on a female. And now we're involved of like pulling this individual's hair, biting, poking the eyes, clawing at the flesh, articulating and verbalizing a very different thing, and that's violence. That's where your life is eminently in peril, and there are no rules. And that's a different thing. And understanding the difference and what that behavior is the first step in knowing how to defend yourself. It's recognizing predatory behavior and knowing the difference between just being in a fight and what impending violence that is about to be put upon you. That's the first thing in understanding self-defense. A lot of it is really, really entertaining martial arts. And you can do that with a good feed and some choreography, and it makes you feel good, and you learn some really cool, intricate moves, and you can experience some success. But when you really try to interface that with true violence, that's when we have problems. And the only way to approximate that is sparring. You either put some gloves on so you can defend and not really put your training partner in a hospital, and you punch each other in the face. You wrestle around with submission grappling, where the reality is you're trying to put that other person to sleep or bend their joints in a way that if they don't submit, that you will break it. That's the only way to approximate that. And there are ways of doing that safely, but learning the difference between fight and violence is the first step.
So what would come next? What do you think is the next most important thing?
Then it's really kind of personality. You'll want to have an understanding of how weapons work. My personal choice was the Filipino martial arts. I did spend a lot of time with Herman Sawanda. He was an Indonesian guy. He was a good instructor. He has since passed. Learned Silat from him. I learned Kali from Dan Asano and some of his instructors. I think you want to know something that is a martial art that deals with the blade. That would be the first one for me. You want to know how a knife works. And that's the great equalizer. So I can take my 17-year-old daughter who knows how to move a blade and give her a blade, and she can be lethal to a very much more stronger, aggressive, bigger person, because the blade, once you sever a tendon, that joint doesn't work anymore. It's not like you can break something. In jiu-jitsu, you can break an arm and the arm will still function. But when you sever it, mechanically sever by a blade, that particular appendage no longer is useful. And if you sever a blood pathway, now you're further increasing the likelihood of that physiological effect where they cannot function up to loss of life. So the using a blade and understanding how that works is probably the next more important thing to know. And Kali is a martial art that really addresses that well. And then the third thing after that, it would be grappling. Anything outside of a blade, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of the martial art and can nullify and deal with everything else. A form of grappling. I like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I think it's really well thought out, and it's easy for people to learn. It's not based upon your athletic ability or natural attributes such as strength, flexibility, dimension of your body. And you can apply it with intelligence, and that is the next equalizer. You can take a smaller, weaker person, and they can defend very effectively against a larger, stronger person, more aggressive person. And I think those three things in concert are probably the best shot you got outside of firearms that someone would be able to achieve a competency in self-defense. Recognizing what violence is and what predatory behavior is, that gives you the indicator of, something bad's going to happen to you. The next one is understanding how a blade works so that you can defend it, survive it, or implement it yourself. And the next place after that is everything that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu addresses: the grappling, the close-in pressure, dealing with people grabbing your clothing and trying to inhibit your movement. I think that would be my opinion on that.
I think one of the things that's very interesting about all of this, and especially when we talk about the armchair defense people, is everything that you're talking about is very disciplined training. Like that you can't go about this with having, I just thought through this and this is what I would do. It's literal. it's literal time, blood, sweat, tears with the people that know what they're doing and going out and doing it yourself. Like,
yeah.
And so many times it's like, oh, I watched a YouTube video series on that, so now I know what to do. And
yeah, well, or they summon Doctor Strange magic, and they're just going to do like this force field on you. There is a magical world of martial arts out there that is comical, and it's fun. There's so many people that are just from weird, different walks of life that, for example, I was there with my business partner, and he and I were training, and this guy came in, and he was like, just kind of really stoic and observant, and I was like, well, it's kind of an awkward moment. This guy just came in off hours. The door wasn't locked. My bad. He came in. He was sitting there, and after about a few minutes of me training, I went up, and dressed with him. I was like, hey, dude, what's going on? He goes, I was just looking. Have you ever heard of chicken martial arts? I'm like, I kind of chuckled. I'm thinking, are you joking?
Right.
And I said, no, I haven't. What is it? Dumb question. I go, what is it? I gave him the opening, and he started mimicking a chicken, like making the noises and kind of flapping his arms, and he was like, and in between that, he was kicking in the air, and he was kind of like clawing at stuff, and he was like, hey, you want to spar? And I was like, no, dude, I think I want to ask you to leave my dojo. Right. And things like that happen all the time. They happen all the time.
I think I've seen that guy on YouTube. Is that what's that guy? Diamond Dave, ninjutsu guy. He's got his girlfriend there, and he just does all these stupid.
That's the Judy chop.
Yeah, the Judy chop and the
oh yeah, I know who you're talking
and
about.
the can of Copenhagen as the throwing star.
He's so funny. He's hilarious.
Why don't you do videos like that, Jim?
Just because there are other guys that are better. He's just funnier. and I'm one of the guys that watches those videos. I'm like, check this guy out. He's hilarious.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I don't know if you wanted to go here or not, but I remember you coming in after talking with Jim one time about, I think it happened to be appendix carry versus whatever, all this stuff,
Yeah.
and you were like, I kind of got humbled by a conversation I had with Jim. Is he was like, well, if you were situationally aware of what was going on, it wouldn't matter exactly where you would have time to draw your weapon if you're just paying attention. So I think one of the things when I started concealed carrying, the weight of the to always being alert, like all of a sudden the switch flipped for me. And it was like I'm not just a patron in a restaurant anymore. I've elected myself to be someone who has the opportunity to defend if something were to go south in some form or fashion. And all of a sudden, I had to start paying attention more. But I still don't think it's probably an adequate level of just paying attention to your surroundings as part of your self-defense regimen.
Yeah, well, I think I would articulate it this way: when you carry concealed carry or open carry, once you carry a firearm or a knife, you are accepting the responsibility of lethal force. Now, you now have the capability of departing a soul from the body, and that's a big deal, and that's a responsibility that has gravity to it. So yeah, that's really what we're playing with whenever we're talking about carrying a weapon, especially a firearm, because the capacity to do harm is so great. And saying sorry doesn't make that one better. So yeah, being situationally aware is paramount. And it should be anyway. Whenever I'm out with my daughter, I'm her father. I'm her protector. It's my responsibility, God-given responsibility. I need to make sure that she's okay. Of course, I've been in an environment where trained men have tried to hunt me down and kill me. So I'm kind of familiar with what that feels like. Now, being in a domestic environment in the United States is far different than being in a combat zone. However, my mindset's still the same. Predators are out there. They want to do people harm. My daughter is a known target, and I conduct my activity in and around her as such. Like, I'm mindful of those things, whether I'm armed or unarmed. I'm always being aware of my situation, because the moment you're not, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you wish you were, because that's probably something that you just can't take back.
And you mentioned recognizing predatory behavior, and what does that look like?
Well, generally speaking, is if you're like, man, does that feel weird? Does that feel like it's not right? If you're asking yourself that question, my response to you is, yeah, it's probably not right. There's all kinds of things that kind of lead into or display predator behavior. There's the darting of the eyes and aggressive posturing and kind of positioning so that there's angle and there's opportunity, breathing, sweating. There's all kinds of these indicators. Lots of studies are out there that are available. Law enforcement makes it their profession to really dissect this. The FBI does a good job of that in Secret Service. Like, it's trying to figure out what are the indicators that human beings get off that tell others that, hey, these guys, this action is about to happen, because these are the things that people do. And guys that are not well trained, I think there's a few classifications. Now, by no means am I saying I'm an expert at this. This is just my experience. You get guys that are trained to kill other human beings. So we see that the Marine Corps does that. That is what it is. We are trained to kill the enemy. And in that effort, you start to desensitize really kind of what that really means, and it allows you to do your job. Then there's those that are born that way, or through early child development become that way, where they no longer have that empathy or that ability to relate to another human, and they just kill, right? And that's where we get the Ted Bundys and the John Wayne Gacy's kind of guys. And then there's those that are faced with a situation like a mother defending her children, who kill to defend, that it's really not who they are. They're just forced, and they do this action to survive themselves. And I think where we want to be is the trained person, to have thoughtfully considered what those actions are, so that if we're ever faced with that, we don't find ourselves facing one of those who it's what they want to do, and find ourselves in the situation like the mother defending the children and be in a position where we're forced to do it. So I live myself as my life as a warrior. I trained that. I've thought about it. I have lived through those experiences, and that's the way I choose to walk on this planet. Even though I am a Christian, I know that there's harm out there, and I have done everything I possibly can to be prepared should that occasion arise.
Wow.
I'm not sure if that kind of answered your question.
That absolutely did. Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking too, I was like, I really need to, next time we get together, I need you to teach me some knife stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my first passion. I love jiu-jitsu, but my first love is Kali.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to spell Kali.
Kali.
Oh, okay.
Is that learning how to wield a knife or a blade? Is that what Kali is?
Yeah, it's a Filipino martial art. There are many styles. Generally, it's geographically kind of separated from the island of Luzon down to Mindanao. There was different tribes, and they had a different flavor. Really started from the Spaniards' conquest into those islands, and they had stiletto blades, and the Filipinos were trying to figure out how to combat these blades. So they were making rattan sticks to defend against sword fights, which they were really successful at. And then it really just kind of broadened from there. And then our influence, the American influence, whenever MacArthur was in the Philippines, that martial art continued to evolve through all of those influences.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's cool.
Really neat.
Yeah. And there are really good places to go source that training. And when guys ask me, is jiu-jitsu the end all be all? I'll be honest, and to the disagreement of some of my colleagues, no, jiu-jitsu is not the end all be all, because the moment someone pulls out a knife and starts cutting your thighs, your guard is not going to be the same anymore. And that's a fact of life. So you need to know how to deal with that. The blade changes things.
Yeah.
And there's no place to learn how the blade operates than a skillful colleague practitioner. It would be prudent of you, if this is something serious, to know what the blade does and what it does not do.
And you're my guy. So next
time we're traveling, I will share with you.
Awesome. Perfect.
Live fire too. We don't want any rubber knives. We want
right. Yeah.
As long as it's all on the right leg, we're good.
So
yeah, let's not. We can say we did, but let's not do it.
I'll definitely say we did.
Matt says a
I will
lot.
back you up.
I've got another question on preparedness. If I were to tell you that your friend Matt had only 32 miles to empty left in his truck right now, would you be disappointed with his lack of preparedness?
I would chuckle. Hey, brother.
That's
hey,
I might be at
we all find ourselves there.
I might be at 29 right now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
All right.
We were out to lunch earlier today, and I'm like, I'm going to bring this up later. You're really low. You're on fumes, man. You can't even get home. You couldn't even go home right now if you wanted to.
No, I got to make it to the end of the block.
Yeah.
Hopefully it holds out. So beyond that, speaking of firearms, because Chet and I had talked about this last week, he's got or you're looking for a light to put on your pistol. Is that correct?
Or
do you have one that you like?
I have one. It doesn't. You shunned me like all over the place about.
Well, I didn't shun you. I just said I personally don't like having a light on my.
You were
on my
very
gun.
animated of how dumb it was.
I don't believe this.
To have a light. But no, because I was like, oh, there's a sale. I may get another one. But then the problem I have is the holsters don't accommodate the combination that well. And you're like, well,
right.
it's dumb to have a light anyway. I can carry a flashlight in my pocket and then hold it up, yeah. So I will argue with you till I'm blue in the face, Matt. But if Jim tells me that that's dumb, then I'm going to not have a light on my weapon anymore.
So is that a question here?
Yeah, sure. Fire away.
What are my thoughts on lights? Well, I mean, to start off, man, I can't remember the last time I shot a dude in the daytime. So a lot of the work that I experienced in combat was at night. So there's a time and place to say, yeah, I'd probably never use a white light, but we did use IR lights. However, I'm officially retired from that. I don't do that work anymore. So now I find myself inside the United States where I got a crazy 17-year-old that might try to sneak out of the house, and the last thing that I want is to find myself presenting a pistol with my daughter trying to sneak back into the house because she just didn't want to ring the doorbell. So having a positive ID method
without putting
critical.
the gun barrel on that individual.
It is super critical.
And I think now, not to cut you off, but I think I did tell him, if you have a light that's attached to your weapon and you're using that to see, whatever you're pointing at, you want to die. And if that happens to be your child coming into the house, that's a bad day.
I heard you say that.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I keep my lights separate. But
yeah, you want to have an ability to PID. Yeah.
But he did not listen to me on that. So maybe you can help him there. But no, and then I just, what are your recommendations on lights as far as whether it's not attached to the weapon or not?
It sounds like it's not attached.
Right.
You and I identify without having to put your muzzle on that target. I
wanted you to say it.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. I heard the expert, and then I agree with the expert.
I just wanted to hear you say
it. I get asked questions like this a lot. I was like, hey, Jim, what do I do when the zombies come? Do I need water, or do I need food, or do I need a gun? And invariably the answers are you need the know-how. You need to know how to do things, because once we start getting into the discussion of equipment specific skill. Once you don't have that piece of equipment, you no longer have that skill. So I would advocate being well-versed in shooting with a flashlight, well-versed in shooting with an attached light, well-versed in shooting with no light in low light conditions. That way you can have a variety of skill sets to bring to bear to whatever situation you might find yourself. And it's not the first time that you think about it when it's the first time that happens to you. So I can shoot with a flashlight separate from my pistol. When I carry concealed by and large throughout the day, it does not have a light on it. I have a flashlight right by my bedside, so I can PID first if it's in a low light situation, and I have combat sights on it so that I can illuminate if I don't want to put a flashlight out there. And I do have pistols that have lights on them, but I would kind of avoid saying I like this brand or this kind of this type of light. They're all good depending on what it is that you want and whatever it is you can afford. So as long as you understand, hey, this is what my need is, then you can go out there and source the light that best fits your need within your budget. But you should be well versed in all of those skill sets: shooting a pistol in low light conditions with no light, shooting a pistol tandem with a flashlight, a separate flashlight, and being able to shoot that pistol with an attached light.
Fantastic.
I'm not sure if I helped you out there, Matt.
No, you helped him out perfectly, because I admitted that in that conversation that we had that's a good thing not to just have only a light on the end of your gun and point it at everything to identify it.
Yeah, you don't want to be a one-trick pony on that.
Yeah.
And I just wanted him to say it with this red record button and it being out there in the universe forever.
Yeah,
it's on the interwebs now.
Yeah.
It is. It will never go away.
Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate that. That's a lot of good insight for, myself, these guys and our listeners, because it's a lot of stuff that, we normally don't think about. And somebody that, is in your line of work, was in your line of work. It's awesome to get that point of view and perspective from. So as we always do on this show, I think we're going to go ahead and move to our top three. Mm-hmm. And today we have top three cereals. But before we get to that, we're going to take a quick break. So hang with us.
Okay.
This episode is brought to you by Admiral's Pennant Beard Oil. Visit admiralspennant.com for all your beard oil needs.
Yeah.
That's what we use.
That's what I used to use.
You need to grow it out.
I should.
Are you going to get another fall beard?
Possibly if I go duck hunting. But if I do, I'm going to use some Admiral's Pennant. That's for sure.
You get that right. Where do you get it, Matt?
I think you just told him. AdmiralsPennant.com.
That's right.
www.admiralspennant.com.
And it comes with a nice letter from the owner.
Yeah, every one of them.
So tell them Hardheaded sent you. Thanks, Admiral's Pennant, for sponsoring this episode.
This commercial just smells different.
All right, and we're back. Headed into top three cereals. So, Chet, you're going to lead us off. What you got?
I'm going to fire away. May be controversial here. May not be. I don't know.
Yeah. Always is.
My number three is Corn Pops.
Oh, I haven't heard that one in a long time.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, some nostalgia there.
I'm not talking about the guy that was threatening the swimming pool where Joe Biden was a lifeguard.
Corn Pop?
Corn Pop.
It's not that guy. I'm talking about the cereal from funny. Kellogg's. It's really good, but I think it's a little more sentimental because the only cereal I knew my dad eating, he rarely ever ate cereal. But when he did, it was Corn Pops. And I don't know why. But
gotta have my Pops.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I haven't seen one of those commercials in forever. Gotta have my Pops. Do they still make it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, oh, yeah. You got to go into a store sometime.
I never go into stores. But.
Yeah, but it's right there. You remember it had the foil package inside the box instead of just the plastic stuff?
I do remember that.
I think I do remember. It doesn't have that anymore, I don't believe.
Yeah, I think Honey Smacks had the same kind of packaging.
Yeah.
Nice.
Honey smacks. That's a good one.
So number 2, going in a different direction here, but my number 2 top cereal, Grape Nuts.
Grape Nuts.
Okay.
I'm a huge Grape Nuts fan, and I like to add Grape Nuts to other cereals. So do a little mixture.
Mix it, yeah.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel healthy when you eat grape?
Not at all.
Okay.
I just like the crunch. It takes so much to get this thing soggy. Which is I love the crunch of Grape Nuts, and they had to shut down Grape Nut production due to COVID.
It's disappointing.
It just came back on the shelves like a month or two ago. Like it was gone. Like I had a craving. I need to go get some Grape Nuts. Nowhere to be found. You Google it and they're apologizing. Hey, we had to shut their whole Grape Nut thing down.
Yeah.
So wow. Anyway, and what a horrible name for cereal. Like
Grape Nuts.
Yeah. Like I don't get it, but I like the cereal. And then my number 1, Captain Crunch berries. So
berries,
not just the berries, not the one that's all berries, but Captain Crunch with the berries, the red ones.
Okay, yeah.
Crunch berries.
Because that's immediately what I was questioning. I was like, no, let's be specific on this one. Is
Right.
it the berries?
You can't do the whole berry where they had the malfunction at the machine and they only put berries in the bag. Not that one. The normal Captain Crunch with the berries. So Crunch berries.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
I think that's what they call it.
That's my number 1.
Wow. That's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Very, very respectable.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you. Coming from an expert, a trained expert in many things, many disciplines, including cereals.
Including cereal.
Very good.
Add that title to your long list. Cereal expert.
I may have been wrong on the weapon light, but by golly, I got some good cereals picked out here.
I'm questioning the Grape Nuts.
Yeah, did you do?
All right. Well, Jim, you wanna give us your top 3 cereals?
Right. Well, the Corn Pops, that's a good one. I was like, wow, okay. Hadn't thought about that. Well, I did have a Grape Nuts phase at a time. It was kind of like line dancing, kind of came in and then went out. So I'm going to say my third top cereal is going to be Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Ooh, yeah.
That's normal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it, because it kind of speaks for itself. And then second would be, I'm a purist. I like the Captain Crunch with nothing in it. Not the peanut butter one, not the Crunch Berries, just like regular Captain Crunch.
Yep, I'm with you.
And then
kind of both of these, the Captain Crunch like tears up your mouth if you eat a lot of it. It takes some discipline to get through a whole box.
Right. I saw a movie with some Vikings and it just says, grow stronger.
Yeah.
You have weaker mouth.
That's right.
A Viking would never worry about it chewing up their mouth, right? And Captain Crunch is a pirate, so it's like a Viking has something to say.
He's the Captain Crunch trying to toughen us all up.
Yeah,
absolutely. Which falls right into my all-time favorite is the Fruity Pebbles with marshmallows. Not regular Fruity Pebbles, not Cocoa Pebbles, the ones that have the marshmallows in it. So you're kind of combining the best of Fruity Pebbles and Lucky Charms all together. And you can buy the bag of just the marshmallows and really get into a sugar high on that. That's my ultimate. I would crave that on some missions that I found myself doing in my career. I would just think, man, I really want to have some Fruity Pebbles with the marshmallows. And that's all I could think about until Exfil.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I don't think I've ever had I've never had the ones with marshmallows.
I don't think I have either.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look
that up.
Well,
then we can't effectively classify our top 3 if you haven't experienced that. Because I'm telling you, my friend, it's a life-changing event there.
I'm gonna have to go do it. Well, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is our staple. Like if we are going to have cereal in our house, it's Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
It's gonna be kids.
My kids love it.
Yeah, that's my lady's favorite.
Very good. Matt, you want to give us your list?
Yep. It's already been said. Number 3, Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the whole reason is because it tears up your mouth. Like I love brushing my teeth the next day and just, it just hurts.
Give me pain. Give me pain.
I even do that with Tombstone pizzas because if you cook those to where they're really crispy,
which you do,
which I love crispy pizza, it will tear the roof of your mouth up.
Totino's party pizza.
Especially if you bite it, if you eat it before it's cooled off enough, you're gonna burn your mouth and then use the crunchy crust to really
slice into it. Yeah,
it's torture.
It's perfect. And number 2, I'm gonna have to say Golden Grams.
Ooh.
Okay. I remember Golden Grams.
Yeah.
I can polish out because they don't make the boxes big enough.
No.
Yeah.
Even the family size is still too small.
Right.
I can get 2 bowls out of a family size box of Golden Grams.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
How big are your bowls? Are you using one of the big metal mixing bowls?
No, I use Tupperware bowls because they don't make cereal bowls big enough.
Just go back and make you another bowl.
That's too much walking, man.
If you have too big of a bowl, you're going to get soggy. You got
soggy Golden Grams are where it's at.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Because then you get that kind of that honey flavor. Oh, yeah. It's kind of like leaving, Cocoa Pebbles or whatever it is, and then just drinking the chocolate,
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Kind of the same thing. So, and then moving on to my number 1 favorite cereal of all time, Count Chocula.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good one. I liked the cartoons on the box. That was fun.
I mean, ever since I was a kid, that's been my favorite cereal. It's the perfect amount of crunch with the sweetness of the marshmallows. And now they only make it during Halloween.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, they don't make it year round. So
you stock up?
Yeah, my wife will go to the store and then she'll come back with my ration of Count Chocula for the year. And by the time I get down to that last box, because once I see them and I know they're there,
you open it up a little bit.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
Because I got to eat them before they go stale.
And that little box only fills up half of his bowl. So
those are terribly undersized.
I've never been a fan of chocolate flavored cereal.
Oh, I love it.
Really?
Yeah.
I love how it just turns the milk into chocolate milk, and you just
I know.
gotta
That's
drink
borderline.
it.
Well, here's the thing. I don't drink the milk out of the bowl after it's done. I use a spoon the whole time. I never like put the spoon down and go.
What is wrong with you?
No,
huh?
I will say that when you sip it, when you use the spoon, for some reason that little bit tastes better than getting the whole thing. I will agree with you on that. You're gonna have to try it.
I like eating all the cereal with the spoon.
Yeah.
And then when all the cereal is completely gone, pick it up and drink it.
No, I just don't do that.
You got to dip the spoon.
That's the whole thing. The Bible story about the selecting the soldiers and they went down and those that like put their face down in the water. You get cut, man. You got to get it with the hand. Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Trying to preach at me over this. Yeah,
cultural thing, man.
Right. Oh man. All right. Well, my top 3. Number 3 is the only one that hadn't been mentioned. Honey Bunches of Oats.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's got the crunch.
Yeah.
It's got the little clusters.
The little crunch clusters.
Yep.
It's got honey. It's got almonds.
That's an adult cereal.
It makes me feel like I'm eating something healthy.
If you bought that for your kids are like, lame.
My kids will eat it.
Do they?
They eat it.
Yeah.
And they like it.
I think it's a lot sweeter now than it used to be, though.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Because I would agree. That was my cereal for a long, long time, but I liked it with almonds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good.
Okay. That's not a bad one. That's not bad.
Number 2, Captain Crunch.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
Original.
Okay.
It made the round.
Yeah.
No berries? No berries?
No,
I'm the only berry guy?
I just like the regular old peanut butter flavor.
There you go. That's
peanut
right.
butter. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's good stuff. And then number 1 has also been said, Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah.
And it's
good one.
Is it a staple in your house? Because my
Yeah.
sister grew up eating it.
So here's that's the funny thing about it is no questions asked about, and my wife doesn't listen to the podcast, so I'm okay. Like that is, she gets it every time she goes. Like that's coming home. But if I my youngest is a big Fruit Loops fan. I bring Fruit Loops home, she'll look at me like, I can't believe you're bringing that junk food cereal in here. I'm like, you're picking stuff
Cinnamon
coated
Toast
in
Crunch.
sugar. Like every little cinnamon toast thing is like coated in sugar. And she's like,
Hey,
"Whoa,
and cinnamon.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, yeah, it's a staple in our house. So she grew up with it. That was
we had it all the time. Every
Yeah.
morning I could have Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
As a kid, and I think this is why I'm a fan of some of the stuff I am, but as a kid, it was like rice Chex, corn Chex, or multigrain Chex. Like it was like Chex was the cereal that we had in our house, which was bland, and more bland.
More bland. Yeah.
So, yeah, I started going crazy with I guess I don't know. Grape Nuts is kind of there too. That's another adult cereal.
It's kind of bland.
Yeah, but I add it to other stuff.
Yeah.
I like. I guess it's an honorable mention here. Grape Nuts with Life cereal.
Ooh, Life cereal's good.
Yeah.
Oh, Life is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good one.
Yeah.
Well,
So what my wife does is, we'll buy these what we'll call expensive cereals. Your name brands.
Yeah.
They're like $6 a box,
They're not quite, but
and
yeah.
they're the little itty bitty tiny box.
Yeah.
And then she'll go buy like cornflakes
Yep.
or whatever, and then she'll mix them.
Oh, like the
So you cut the sugar in half, and you just have. So like, I can't remember. She did it to me one time where I don't know if it's to make it last longer, to cut the sugar down, but one of my cereals, like maybe it was Cocoa Krispies or something like that, and they were mixed, or Cocoa Pebbles, which one is it? Whatever. But then they were mixed with regular Rice Krispies.
oh,
And
man.
that about started a war. So now in our cereal cabinet, because we put them in the plastic containers and then throw the box away,
Yeah.
there's one in there that says "Dad's full sugar, do not eat."
That's funny.
So then I have my own cereal, and then they've got the ones that they mix with everything else because they grew up without a lot of sugar. So
I had no
That's
clue
funny.
there were so many cereal rules in your house. That's
it's a serious game.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know who else cereal is really important to? Seinfeld.
Is there an episode about that?
Yeah.
He eats cereal all the time. Like that's his thing.
I might have to watch that series sometime.
Yeah, you should.
That stuff's good.
You should. All right. We're going to move on to a good word, and I think it ties in really well with what we've talked about today. It comes out of Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 5. It says, "The purpose of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out." So a couple other interpretations will say the intentions of a person's heart are deep waters. So if you look at, I think early on in our conversation, and Scripture's backing this up, is there's a lot of people that have desires to do something, but it says here one with insight or one with understanding will draw them out. So there is a reservoir, if you will, of who we want to be, and somebody who has insight or some understanding actually has to go and draw them out. So it's not just enough here. I think the way I'm interpreting this is that, we all have that desire to be somebody or to do something or to have that purpose that we were created for, but not everybody goes and draws it out. And I think kind of what we talked about today, and Jim, really what you've demonstrated with your life is you found it, but you have spent, a lot of time and a lot of effort drawing out that purpose and going and finding it and refining it and putting a lot of effort into to becoming what your desires were. And I think that's just a great testament for everybody. And it's not everybody's purposes aren't the same, right? But we all have that. And if one who can understand or have insight and to go and put effort into drawing that out to become who we were created to be, is very wise. And that's the whole, point of Proverbs is to give us wisdom and to say that, hey, it's there. The purpose of a person's heart, they're there, but they're in deep waters. And somebody who has insight will go into those deep waters and draw out those purposes. And I think that's a good word for us to know. Number one, you've got a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. And number two, it just doesn't happen. You have to put effort. You have to dig. You have to train. You have to fight for the purpose that you're here for, and then go be it.
Right.
So, anyway, that's my good word for today.
I like it.
that.
I don't think that I have anything to add to that today.
That's
amazing. I think you covered that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Very well.
Thank you, Matt. I really
That's a
appreciate
first.
it. Yeah. Jim, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us and sharing some insight and to your and not just your life, but the kind of your thought process and looking into self-defense and a lot of stuff. I just appreciate you, and I hope our listeners got as much out of this as I did.
Yeah. And I, Jim, I truly thought we would have nothing in common, but I've seen Neverending Story like 200 times. So,
but it didn't take, Troy.
but it didn't put me in the same direction as you went.
You are funny. So I'm relatable. Okay, good.
Well, and I will say that I'm looking over at Chet's notes, and he's filled up the first page, and he's turned it over, and he's on page 2.
Yes.
So a lot of good information, and Jim, I really again appreciate you being on. Thanks for taking the time, and I think you're probably one of the most humble and incredible dudes that I've ever met, and you didn't even share.
Thank you.
Any of those stories about some of the awesome stuff that you've done, and I know we can't talk about a lot of that, but. I mean, it's so awesome to be able to know you. And again, thanks for being on.
I appreciate it, dude. It was a pleasure. I'm glad to meet you guys. That was fun.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, we need some music, and we'll take this thing on out.
I got you.
All right.
Matt's our sound technician, by the way.
I'm really good.
What could possibly go wrong?
I love that. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to another episode of Hardheaded. Go to hardheadedpodcast.com if you want to listen to more.
Yeah, that's good. Good job, Troy.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
I shortened it, pushed everybody to the website.
Yes.
Yeah, so they can like, share, subscribe from Apple, YouTube, Rumble, all those things.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
We're going to make it.
Drop.
There it is.
All right, that's it, man.
All right. Sweet deal.
Was it as fun as you thought it'd be?
Yeah, it was fun to talk with you guys. That was fun.